So I just turned 30, and there's a bunch of things that I wish someone told me 10 years ago. Apparently turning 30 is a big milestone. No more 20s. But I wanted to reflect on the big things that I've learned and been taught in the past 10 years in 4 major categories: personal growth, money, health and wellness, and like productivity and time management. And these are more than just words. These are principles and things that I've learned through mostly failures, but a few successes that I think if I knew 10 years ago would have helped me out a ton. Tip number 1 is many people will dislike you, especially if you're doing something weird or different or kind of that's not normal. For example, me, I get this a lot, but that's okay, I know, because a lot of people that dislike me, usually it's more of a reflection of them than a reflection of me. The only caveat here, if there's people you really care about, like close family, really close friends, and they kind of criticize something or give you advice on something, listen closely there, because it must have taken a lot of effort for them to say something, and it might be real. But overall, you don't have time in life to deal with dickheads, so don't deal with them. Tip number 2 is everything passes. Your goals, your possessions, your body, and your life. Enjoy the good, notice the bad, and realize both will pass. Tip number 3 is your 20s matter. Don't throw them away. Tip number 4 is don't date people you don't have a future with. Tip number 5 is travel intentionally and far away. Try and be alone for the majority of it for greater than 2 months. I learned the most of myself when I spent, around 2 or 3 months in Buenos Aires and 2 or 3 months in Bologna, Italy. These were great times for me when I started to learn the language a little bit more, understand the culture a little bit more. I have a dream to spend maybe 6 months to a year in actually a certain place. I don't know where yet. I'm thinking about, one part of Italy, maybe some part of Portugal, not really sure. But I think the added benefit of staying those 2 months instead of like 2 days is huge. When you're there, you should be spending less than 1 hour a day that's not sleep time in the Airbnb or hotel or wherever you're staying. I'm probably gonna lose track of the idea numbers, but I think this is number 6. Creating 3,000 ideas is actually worth less than having one idea and actually executing on it. For example, even writing one blog post or recording one YouTube video, I think is actually more valuable than 3,000 ideas for YouTube videos. It's been said over and over and over and over and over again, but seriously, stop complaining. No one wants to hear it. You'll bring most people down.
Stop whining.
The people I want to be around most are the kind of motivated, happy, excited people.
No more complaining.
Not the complainers.
You're not gonna have your mommies run behind you anymore and wipe your little tushes.
I have 2 Post-its on my computer, one that says stop complaining and the other one that says be a human.
Your kids are soft. You lack discipline.
My final personal growth tip is junk in, junk out. This applies to sleep, food, what you're drinking, friends. If you put bad stuff in the system, you're probably gonna have bad outputs. Okay, next major category, money and work. The first tip in money and work is understand taxes. Understand debt. Try to avoid debt at all costs. Understand insurance and understand fees. Be an adult, basically. Okay, this is probably one of my more controversial tips. I'm sure I'll get a lot of hate for this. But if you are safe, fed, sheltered, and not in debt, I think you should, and you're in your 20s, I think you should take at 2 or 3 points of time during that time, 50 to 75% of your savings and try going all in on a big risk that's something you make, right? So that's starting your own business, buying photography equipment, videography equipment, building a team to build a website or an app or something like that. This doesn't mean risking it all on some crazy investment or crypto or something like that. It means risking it all on something that you're creating, risking it all on yourself. That's how I started this channel. That's how I've started a couple other things. It's the biggest growing points I've had in my 20s. And here's the most important part of that tip. Even if you fail doing that thing, the amount you've learned is probably worth that investment. So for example, I did a podcast, a YouTube channel, website, I tried eBay reselling. A lot of those things failed, but what I learned from all of those things was worth the money I put into them. The next tip is marketing and sales is actually fairly simple. Number 1, figure out who your ideal audience is. Where do they shop? What do they like? What are the problems they are facing? Step number 2 is educate them on how to actually solve their problem and get to where they're trying to get. Don't try and sell them on your product or the features of your product. Just educate them on ways they can solve their problem. And step number 3, hopefully your product actually solves this problem problem in a really nice and easy way, better than a lot of the other products. And then buying the product just becomes a byproduct. Get what I did there? Get it, get it, get it. The next tip is 99% of people can identify a fire. Only 1% of people can identify the fire, figure out a way to put it out, and then actually put it out without being asked 900 times to put out the fire. Be that 1% and a whole new world will open up to you, I promise. But if you're on the other side of that spectrum and you can't solve any problems yourself without professional help or reaching up or something like that within a company or business, you are a liability and you'll be treated as such. The last tip in Money and Work, and I think this is my favorite and the most important tip, I pretty much stole this from Charlie Munger, but understanding why things are created, how things are created, and why they're successful or why they're not successful will change how you look at the entire world in a great way. This coffee cup is a business. The white lines on parking lots are a business. The lining to jackets that you wear are a business. Shampoo bottles are a business. Why is the shampoo bottle white? Why is it placed on the middle of the shelf in the CVS? What's the incentive for the CVS to put it on the middle shelf versus the top shelf versus the bottom shelf? Is it a legal reason, a marketing reason, a cost savings reason? What's the reason behind it? Seriously, if you can start to think about everything you interact with and work with and use as a product, and someone who's created that product and kind of people are buying that product for some reason, you'll start to really look at things at a much deeper and kind of better level. Tip number 1 within health and wellness is fire people from your life that create drama. It's really not worth it unless they're some of your closest family or friends. And it goes the other way too here, right? Don't create drama and don't burn bridges unnecessarily. Tip number 2 is alcohol can be fun, but seriously, it ruins like 2 to 3 days almost instantly for me. I think for the past 6 years, I've averaged about 1 drink a month. Tip number 3 is sleep is one of the easiest and most important and most effective levers to fix pretty much anything. Energy, muscle growth, mental fog. I mean, altering your sleep by simply 1 hour decreases the amount of growth hormone that's released by your body by over 50%. Optimize your sleep by keeping your bedroom pitch black, colder than 70 degrees, and as quiet as possible, unless you want some white noise. Have light exposure within the first hour of waking up, dark light exposure 3 hours before going to bed. No caffeine at all, or alcohol or anything like that after 12, preferably not at all during the day. Exercise during the day, have a morning routine, have a nighttime routine, and stick to it. These are the evidence-based tips. This is one of my favorite tips. I think it's tip number 4. No one cares what you're doing, and no one has any idea what you're doing. Seriously. Say yes to most growth and work opportunities that excite you. Do those crazy and weird things that excite you. Seriously, just do them. No one cares. No one cares. Tip number 5, I think, within the health and wellness, these numbers really are just going crazy. But the paradox of being selfish is that being selfish for your personal time, health, wellness, any of these kind of activities is actually the selfless thing to do. And the reason being is that when you're selfish, you basically optimize yourself. And when you optimize yourself, you have better interactions with your friends, family, and business. So be selfish for the things that are important to you, and it will actually help the people around you. Okay, the next tip, and this really isn't that evidence-based, but it's something I really have recently liked a lot. I love hot saunas and I love cold plunges. The science behind it, again, is iffy, but I think the really cool thing about it is that when you do it, you kind of build this mental muscle of going through these hard things. So I like to do kind of a hot sauna kind of within 3 hours of bed for 10 to 20 minutes. And then in the morning, I like to do a cold plunge when I first wake up, as long as I can tolerate it, usually around 5 minutes. Here are some other gimmicky things that I've actually loved in the past 10 years. The cooling mattress, one of those cooling mattresses, sleepy time tea, blackout curtains. Those are, again, they're silly things, but they've made huge impacts on my quality of sleep. Okay, back to evidence-based things for health and wellness. And the final tip is meditation and journaling can change your life. They're evidence-based ways to reduce stress and anxiety and will give you the tool set to get through nearly any challenge in your life. The hardest part really is consistency. Can you commit 15 minutes every day to these two things? 10 minutes of meditation, 5 minutes of journaling. Try it for a month and just see what happens. The first thing is 2 to 3 hours of uninterrupted deep work every morning for a year will change your life in the year. I promise you, it's the most powerful needle mover I've ever used. Tip number 2 is scheduling beats a to-do list 9 times out of 10. Tip number 3, figure out if what you're learning affects the management. This is something that I learned in the hospital actually, and really what you want to do is when you're trying to study or learn some piece of information, figure out if that's going to alter the end game. Now, of course, you could just be trying to learn something for education or entertainment, that's fine, but know that you're looking or to learn that information for that reason. Tip number 4, and I'll come back to this over and over, but you're ignoring your health too much. You just are. I remember after kind of 2 months of heavy working in the hospital, I realized kind of how poor I was being productivity-wise. I wasn't feeling great, blah, 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 blah. And I had a 2-week vacation coming up, and I actually slept really well for a week, and I was doing more, accomplishing more, working better than I ever did before. And I was like, wow, what's going on? What's magic? And then I realized, oh, wait a second, I'm sleeping, I'm exercising, I'm eating the food I like to eat. Don't forget these normal basic things and see if you can figure out ways to get them into working order, because once you get them into working order, the productivity, efficiency, like output of your life will increase kind of back to 100%. And I know a lot of people like this actually. If you've never been in that good zone of sleeping, working out, eating properly and stuff like that, and you get there, you'll just become a new person. You just will. The next tip, because I've lost track again, do some introspection and figure out what time of the day you do the best work. Like for me, I do my best kind of hard, creative, like very analytical work early in the morning. And then later in the day, I do my best kind of social, like meetings and calls, or kind of hard grunt work. That's when I do that work. But that hard analytical, that creative work time is really important to me, so I protect that time at all costs. You have to protect that time because no one else will. Tip number 9,623 is we are exposed to way too many productivity hacks, life tips, 30 lessons I learned when I turned 30 videos and things like that. Figure out the 3 to 5 most important things in your life and figure out how you can emphasize those things and de-emphasize the other things. That's really the biggest life tip ever. Figure out what your priorities are, what matters to you, emphasize those things, de-emphasize the other things. It sounds so simple, but when you actually go through and start doing these things, it's like you're living the life you meant to live. And the final tip is delegation has changed my life. It's freed up my time to do things that really matter to me, those 3 to 5 priorities that I talked about before. And I used to think that outsourcing anything would be impossible for me because I'm the best. I do everything better than everyone else. Why should I outsource the things that I can do actually better than anyone else? And so I thought, maybe I'll just find someone that can do things about 80% as good as me. Editing, assisting and publishing things on the internet and things like that. And what I learned is that they weren't 80% as good as me. They were 150%, so they were 50% better than me, or 150% as good as me. I should have done it so much sooner. They're way better at me at editing my videos, cleaning up my house, like all these silly things that you think you're really good at. Other people are better at them, for sure. Okay, but those are my 30 tips. I hope that was helpful. These are really things that I've used and implemented and will kind of guide my life, I think, starting this 30-year-old journey out. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you on the next one. You failed.
It's not working.
Don't eat that, Lily.